Good evening, Super League fans. Welcome to the new normal. Not the new normal that we'd perhaps anticipated, but this is the new normal that we're going to get. Um, Obviously, this is pre-recorded, and it will be for the foreseeable future, for reasons already explained to I think a few of you. I can't commit specific times at the moment due to the nature of the situation. So although I might occasionally be available for a Sunday night, I can't say in advance. So I would have to pre-record the show anyway, which means that all the games have obviously already been played, and yeah, there's nothing else we can do about it. So this is what we have to deal with at the moment. I hope it's not too much of an inconvenience for you, and I hope you continue to enjoy the league and enjoy the rest of the season. Hopefully we'll be able to squeeze in the finals live, something like that, maybe at short notice. We'll see when we get there. Either way, the only other question I have before I get started is whether you prefer it with or without the delightful background music. For me, it makes no difference really. It just feels a little bit more natural to talk when there's something going on in the background instead of just talking in complete silence. But I'm happy to remove it. I'm happy to turn down the volume if it's too annoying or intrusive. Anyway, without further ado, I think it's time for us to have a look at the results from the last round and remind ourselves of what happened in case anyone has forgotten. Bolton Phoenix cruised to a 3-0 victory against BTEC Troopers. As you can see here, obviously Juan Sebastian Verong with a strong performance role did a good job as well. BTEC Troopers were a little bit of in a changed formation, a changed lineup, with Ronald Gomez making his debut, but none of the attacking players really got anything out of it, which sadly is kind of symptomatic for BTEC's season with 21 goals in 18 games. They really need to find a different solution to get the best out of the players they have at their disposal. Last season's champions Bolton Phoenix obviously trying to return to something I don't know, similar to the form they had last season. They've not been that impressive so far, but it's been picking up recently, and they're not far off the lead. Excellent goalkeeping performance from Andre and a decent performance all round from the Chudley Cannons. They were slightly outplayed against last season's finalist. Had Emery injured, but they still managed a 0-0 draw. Valen United, of course, also in the playoffs and looking for a repeat of last season's performance in terms of qualifying for the final. But maybe hoping to get one step higher on the ladder, so to speak. They would have to get past Churchtown, I think. Churchtown are not runaway leaders, but they are out in front. They beat the previous league leader, Arsley, 2-1. Strong performance from Mike Duff, who joined from Valen, who hadn't had many games there, and Barry Ferguson, who was one of the players of the season last year, obviously. Then we had a 0-0 with Hoddesdon Hornets and Palmerthinaikos. Hornets struggling with scoring, struggling with injuries, struggling with various things. We'll see what Craig has come up with. Palmerthinaikos, much of the same for them. Not so much erratic in form, but stably kind of a little bit disappointing. I'm not sure what what Chris Mack makes of it, but they had such a good strong start to the season, but now they find themselves just above Aster Athletic and potentially in with a real risk of dropping out of the playoffs. We have Hooligans who lose some form, they find some form, they lose some form, they find it again. This time they beat Dragons 2-1, and they are obviously along with Aster the clubs that are those are the two clubs that are closest to get into the playoff spots at the expense of Palmerthinaikos and potentially Arsley Celtic, who are the bottom two from the top six. Ronaldinho scoring form for him. That's not something we see all the time, but here he is, and 2 goals. Obviously very crucial for Hooligans as they try and push on with just less than 10. How much have we got? 8 games left of the regular season. Sloths put in a strong performance. Matthias Kessman against his former club. Christian Vieri scoring against his former club back, getting the goal. Unfortunate for Midlothian, they've got Stephen Gerrard injured, adding to Gattuso, who's also already injured, I believe. Bit of a rough run for Stephen Gerrard. I think he's out for a while. In terms of the performance, I think Sloths are really starting to pick up out of the 3 teams that were sort of rooted to the bottom of the table, then BTEC and Swindon last season. They are probably the most promising looking side at the moment, and actually on the verge of potentially being able to overtake both Hornets and potentially Dragons as well, and catching up with the Cannons. So a half decent season for Sloths so far, all things considered. Obviously they are third bottom, so it's not brilliant, but there we go. It was yet another defeat for Swindon Devils, unfortunately, and a win for Aster Athletic as they continue their push to get into the playoffs. Palmerthinaikos obviously being the team that they are chasing and currently only 1 point behind. They don't score that many goals. Aster, they don't concede that many. 25-25 is the for against ratio for them, but they're a solid win against Swindon, who are yet to find any kind of form really this season. There was a sniff of a turnaround earlier on, but it's an uphill struggle for them, unfortunately. And with Zinedine Zidane being not the most popular player in the camp, I think they've got several. They're fighting a battle on several fronts, not just in the league. Talking of the league, we'll have a look at the league table. Quick reminder for everyone in case you'd forgotten. I don't know if it was put up online, but either way, here it is. Churchtown 3 points ahead of Midlothian. Obviously, some interesting games coming up today that could definitely affect various different things in terms of the league table, as it always is. But there are some special things that we can focus on tonight. We've got the Aster Athletic. Obviously, that's a really big one. They could overtake Palmerthinaikos. Palmerthinaikos are away to Bolton Phoenix, which is oh sorry, no, they are not actually. I'm looking at next week's schedule. Sorry, Palmerthinaikos are at home to Aster Athletic, so obviously that's a big battle for that place that they've got there. BTEC are at home to Churchtown Massive. BTEC desperately need points as they have been needing for a while. Churchtown obviously looking to consolidate their lead. RC Celtic, they don't want to get caught up in the battle around the playoff spot, so they need a win against Hoddesdon, who also need a win to get away from the bottom. Dragons and Swindon face off against each other. That'll be an interesting encounter. And then we've got Midlothian against Phoenix, second against third. That's always going to be an interesting one. And finally, Vallon United, as they continue to look for stability, although they are without Roy Keane. They face off against the Somerset Sloths. Without too much ado, we're gonna dive straight into it. We'll save the clash of the evening, Palmerthinaikos Aster, the one where with the most at stake. We'll save that until the end. It is second from the end anyway, but we'll just follow the schedule as it is here. So we'll kick off with RC Celtic against Hoddesdon Hornets, and we'll see how the guys get on in that one. We'll have a look at the tactics for the two sides. So first of all, we've got the RC Celtic here. Obviously, I was going to say unchanged. They are not, because they have found a spot for Leandro Coufret to come in again. He replaces John Terry, who's been good but not impressive, and Coufret has obviously been one of the defenders of the season so far, with his exceptional performances, and very, very great average there, 8.07. One of the key players for RC Celtic, along with Patrick Vieira, who's obviously having a very dominant role in that midfield, and they did have a pretty good game last time out, I guess. I mean, it's difficult to go to Churchtown, but we'll see if they fare any better against Hoddesdon Hornets tonight. They are Hornets. They're not exactly conceding a lot of goals, so that is maybe a little bit worrying for Ardsley, but they aren't scoring any particularly either. However, Craig Day So it's got Kieran Dyer and Emerson in central midfield, Milevski in that DMC role, Ferdinand Nesta at the back. Familiar faces in a familiar lineup, and hopefully for BTEC they can produce something a little bit different today compared to some of their more recent results, which haven't been great. And to be honest, although they have 5 wins for the season, which is not too bad. I mean, okay, it's in 18 games, but still 5 wins. Second bottom, and only 21 goals scored in 18 games. That is a little bit concerning, I would suggest. But let's see how they fare tonight. They are at home to Churchtown Massive, and Churchtown, of course, is is a difficult team to face at the best of times. And they do, for if something should count in BTEC's favor in this one, it is that they have Ruud van Nistelrooy injured. They do play Everton instead, the young Brazilian who's come in and not really impressed. I mean, he played a 7, and that was about it really on his debut, and we've not seen him since. But he comes in and replaces Ruud van Nistelrooy, so we'll see how that goes. Mike Duff, obviously, we spoke about. What a revelation he's been since he's been given regular football. 10 games, 3 goals and 5 assists from that right-hand side. Probably the right-sided player of the season so far in the Super League. If we're being a little bit. I don't know if we even have to be biased, because I don't think there are any of the regulars that have delivered numbers in that range. Maybe in terms of average ratings, but average rating is one thing, goals and assists is another. So good job for Duff, and he's obviously got Robin on the other side. Yeah, I mean that's a good return for a left-sided player as well. He can obviously play in other places as well, but doing a good job out here. Either way, that's the Churchtown lineup, and very attacking, obviously. So we'll see if that's going to cost them. But BTEC at home to Churchtown. Let's see what happens in this one. Can Churchtown hold on to their first place? I mean, it will take a bit of a miracle for Midlothian because they need quite a lot of goals to overtake them. But let's see what happens in terms of how the points are distributed. 14 minutes gone already, in contrast to the game that we had earlier on this evening, or the first game this evening. It took about 10 minutes to get through the first 10 minutes. Here we are 40 seconds in, and we are nearly at half time. A couple of chances for either side. And not really a huge amount of pressure from Churchtown, was a little bit unusual, but still they have the players to score. There's Olisa Debi popping up and getting the first goal for the visitors. We'll see who got the assist for that. First of all, let's have a look at the stats. I mean, I did say there wasn't like a constant pressure, but they're clearly still the dominant side, Churchtown, and they yeah. In terms of, apart from the winning tackles, which they haven't done too well, then they've had a pretty good grip of the game so far. BTEC had the most of the ball, most of the possession. Failed to really do a lot about it, which is kind of the story of the season for them. We'll have a look and see how the players have been performing. Buffon getting an 8 for saving a bunch. Nesta getting an 8 for doing okay in defense. Akahawa not doing anything. Pizarro not really doing anything in terms of shots, in terms of tackling. Was maybe not expected, but could maybe like get involved a little bit. Not a single key pass for the whole side, which is also a little bit disappointing, I guess. But I mean, it is the league leaders they're up against, so it's not the easiest game, obviously. But I'm guessing Ian had hoped for a slightly stronger performance from their side. They normally averages. The averages are normally not so bad, but in this case they are kind of poor. In terms of Churchtown, not really too much to write home about. Romeo getting the assist. 7s across the board, a couple of 6s for Soroczynski and Larson. They could probably be doing a little bit better. They normally do, but Larson's not made any tackles for some reason. I think he normally puts himself about quite well. Looks as if they haven't had many tackles to do. I'm not sure where BTEC are putting the ball, but it doesn't seem to be going into the danger area or near anyone who has to do anything to stop them. We'll see if that changes in the second half. Yeah, not much else to say about it really. It's gusty, so we could get an awkward header, I guess. Good start to the second half for BTEC there. That's Akahawa, who'd done nothing in the first half, and then comes up with a goal to make it 1-1 just at the start of the second half. A couple of good chances there for Churchtown, trying to get one back at them straight away, but BTEC are looking much better in the second half so far. Certainly creating more chances. Whether they'll get to convert them remains to be seen. With 25 minutes to go, they're obviously still in with a good shout, and yeah, chances for either side. It seems to alternate really how they are distributing the shots and the chances. A little bit better maybe for Churchtown, but they haven't capitalized on it yet. very low scoring for them. They can be dangerous right at the end. We've seen that before. Let's see if BTEC can do something. No, they cannot. They cannot, and it stays 1-1. So yeah, very, very eventful second half with lots of chances, especially for BTEC. Great comeback, great team talk from the manager at halftime to get the boys up to speed, and a good point. It's only the third draw of the third draw of the season for BTEC, and as I said, a much stronger performance in the second half. They kept control of the match in terms of possession and in terms of where the football was played, but I get the feeling they're kind of just passing it about really. But either way, I mean, if you have the ball, the opponents can't score. But and if you have Buffon in goal, that also helps. So let's see if he gets an 8. He does. Milevski unusually getting a 5 for what I thought was a pretty good central defensive midfielder position, but he was up against Henrik Larsson, which I guess is kind of difficult, but you would have thought he would have done a little bit better maybe in terms of his average rating. But anyway, let's not take anything away from BTEC. They had 3 key passes in the second half. Emerson came in with an assist. That's about time we see something from him. Agahawa, we've not seen a lot from him either, so he scores, so that's good for the team and the morale. Only thing you could maybe say is that the strikers are still, they're up against one defender. There's one that Chelsea play with one defender, yeah, and still Pizarro doesn't manage to really do anything or impose himself on the game at all, which has got to be disappointing for the manager. But a good point against the league leaders nonetheless. Speaking of the league leaders, Lilian Thuram with a dominant performance, 5 key headers he won there. Edgar Davids with a very, very strong defensive performance as well. Barry Ferguson actually chipping in with a great defensive performance. Normally we see him in a more attacking role, but obviously he'd been roped in to help out the defense today with just one guy at the back, and he did a good job. 6 tackles, 4 of them won. Soroczynski, disappointing from him considering how good he normally is. Mike Duff with a decent display there, the highest passer in the Georgetown side, but poor completion ratios with only 29 out of 42. And no assist for him, so nothing to add to his tally for today. They're obviously missing Van Nistelrooy a little bit. Everton came in and didn't. I mean, he had a shot. It was on target. He didn't win a header. Van Nistelrooy would probably have been better in that situation. But 2 key passes for him though, which is always something. A bunch of key passes for the Georgetown side, but just failing to capitalize. Perhaps a little bit strange that Buffon only gets an 8 in this one, but nevertheless, that's what we are left with, and the 2 teams obviously move on to bigger and better things in terms of results for them. Hopefully, BTEC I think take on Aster away from home next week, so that'll be a tricky one. Georgetown are back at home. They face Jutley, I believe, which should be maybe a little bit more of a winnable game for them, but Jutley have been strong recently. They have been improving recently, so not too easy. But anyway, that guarantees Georgetown's first spot for tonight, bringing them to 39 points, and they can't be caught by Midlothian regardless of the result of their game. Next up, we have Jutley Cannons against Hooligans. So let's pop over to that game and let's see. Yeah, there we go. Jutley Cannons. So a couple of changes in terms of tactics, in terms of lineup, in terms of various things. He's obviously still tinkering, Scott, getting a little bit more out of Jutley than he was previously, or when he first took over. We see Rossini come back in as a striker. Was he already in last match? Yeah, that was last match. He obviously tried with Zlatan for a short period, but Rossini's back in. Lee Chung-so, who joined recently, 5 games, 4 goals. He's pretty much on fire there, and the same can be said for Carlos Jacques, who's got 2 assists in his 4 games, which brilliant stats for him as well. A bit of a surprise. Two surprise players he's brought in, and he's obviously got a lot of faith in them, playing both of them ahead of Maceo Gallardo. He's got Bama on the left, he's got Esteveria on the right. Interesting one here, he's swapped Van Bommel for Mark Kerr, who might be a good DMC, who knows. And Van Bommel is obviously considered by Scott to be the superior midfielder at this point in Mark's career, so we'll see if that turns out to be the case. It obviously also puts him up against very specific people in the hooligan side, so he's up against Kennedy and Adrianinho, who's the new Brazilian signing for Hooligans. Only change for Hooligans is Mendieta coming in. he came in as a result of an injury in the last game, didn't he, for Sunday Olise anyway, and Marcel Desailly takes Mendietta's place on the bench. Not much to say about Thiago's formation. It's the same as it always is, and we'll see if that pays off for them in their away match against Chudley Cannons. So let's kick this one off and see how it goes. Newcastle. All right, okay. Well, anyway, on we go. Chudley Cannons at home to Hooligans. Hooligans obviously in their narrow. Chudley with the two wide players, with Bauma and with Aster down on the right hand side. Van Bommel, whether he was a better central midfielder or not. Okay, they're in the perfect position. Never mind me. Clearly, both players are in the absolutely optimal positions that they could be in, and they are performing exceptionally well for Chudley in the first half. Seen a lot of Van Bommel in terms of him being involved, both attacking and defensive, and a strong performance from Chudley Cannons. Very, very strong first half performance by them. 6 shots, 5 on target. Pretty much controlling the game in terms of the action, pretty much in the midfield, a little bit more down in the Hooligans end. Very, very strong performance from Chudley Cannons there. Let's have a look at the stats. Solid goalkeeping performance, not much to be said for that. Esteberia on that right hand side, he did prove himself so many times for Chudley, for Churchtown out there, so it's good to see that Chudley is starting to get something out of him as well. Bauma, he's been unhappy most of the season for various reasons, I think, but still putting in a good shift. Sami Hupia and Rocky Jr., good defensive partnership there, blocking out everything. Carlos Shax is he's alright, he's in there, he gets a key pass. Mark Kerr and Van Bommel, very, very dominant in those two roles. Bit of a master stroke, really. Let's see if it continues, but apparently a bit of a master stroke to swap those two to get the best out of both of them. Mark getting both an assist and a goal there, and Van Bommel obviously benefiting from that as well in his goal. Lee Chun-so, Rossini, been a little bit quiet, but we've got Liverani down there as well, putting in a strong, solid defensive performance as we'd expect for him. For Hooligans, it's it's kind of more of the same. It's so unpredictable who turns up, who does well. There always seems to be one guy that lets the side down. In this case, it's Brett Emerton. But never a huge fan of Brett Emerton in general, but I appreciate that he does have a bit of a name in the community. He does a terrible job today. The same for Mendieta, who again, great name. I'm not sure what the instructions are for them or whatever, but it's clearly not really their best time. Very, very few chances created, and only one of them actually ended up on target. Ronaldinho, who had 2 goals in his last game, has hardly touched the ball, Chudley's got it pretty much under control. But let's see what the second half brings. It could all be about to change as we kick off for the second 45. Close has fumbled it, I think, was the first comment of the second half. It's been a bit more of a quiet one so far. A couple of chances maybe for Hooligans, but they've not been able to convert any of them clearly. Nothing that really seems to threaten, no sustained pressure. Maybe a little bit there from Hooligans now. Maybe they're just looking for a late way back into this, but no, the second half kind of fizzled out into a 45-second kind of slow flash fest. Nothing really happened. A couple of good chances still for Chudley, a couple of chances for Hooligans, none of them converted. In terms of the action, it continued in the way that we saw it in the first half, and we'll have a look at the player stats instead and go through them. Pretty much unchanged from the first half in terms of the Chudley performance. Andre gets an 8. We're talking about signings of the season earlier with Joey Johnson for Hoddesdon Hornets being one of the signings of the season from outside of the league. Got to give a shout out to Andre as well. Chudley Cannons last season and Chudley Cannons up until his arrival. Horrendous goalkeeping issues, the sort of inconsistency of the goalkeepers. Performances were okay, but the inconsistencies were just completely, detrimental to any kind of progress that the manager was trying to make with the side. And Andre's come in and he's turned that around, and Chudley are up to 25 points now, and with a draw with Palmerthinaikos and Aster potentially later on, they're pretty much in touching distance, and they obviously overtake Hooligans. So playoffs aren't completely out of the reach of Scott and the boys yet, with 7 to play after this. Yeah, not really much else to say about Kalashaks. Obviously, did a decent job in the second half. Legion, so a little bit disappointingly, Klaus de Rossini didn't get anything out of it either. But it was all about the midfield and Mark Kerr and Mark van Bommel, the Mark double there, who did the business for them and eventually secured them the 3 points with those goals in the first half, the early goals. If you look at the Hooligans' performance, kind of decent-ish from Stefan Klos, only conceding the 2 goals. Brett Emerton remains on a 5, Mendieta on a 6. 6s and 7s all round with the odd 5 and 8 thrown in for good measure. Pablo Aymar getting a yellow card for something or other. Disappointing again for Hooligans. As mentioned, there are just players that will eventually just let him down. Not entirely sure what the reasons for it. If it's squad morale, if it's the way that they they feel about playing those roles. If it's the inclusion of Kennedy, who was such an influential player for them, who was really pushing them on at the end of last season and earlier this season, and he's now completely disappeared. I don't think he's had a decent. I think it's at least 5 or 6 games, 7 games maybe since he's done anything decent. So that's maybe someone who could potentially lose his place as we head into the last 7. Anyway, good result for Chudley and a very strong performance from them. I'm sure the manager will be over the moon with the Mark and Mark double act there, securing the 3 points for them. As we move on this evening, we are looking at a real clash at the bottom of the table here. We've got Dragon Destroyers against Swindon Devils. I say the bottom. It's perhaps a little bit unfair on Jamie and the guys because they are in 10th, but they are only on 20 points, which, although it's double of what Swindon has, it's just 1 or 2 points ahead of Hornets and Sloths and B-Tech who played earlier this evening, and to get up to 18 points. Either way, let's have a look and see how it goes. We have got Dragon Destroyers in a new formation, which we might have seen something similar being deployed by other teams. It'll be interesting. It's not often that Jamie changes things up, obviously, but he's chosen to do it tonight, and obviously he's he's trying. I think there's been a few sort of accusations thrown in the direction of Jamie, of Thiago, of people who are reluctant to change their tactics. And obviously Jamie's found the motivation to go in, ask the manager, and say, right, I'm going to give this a shot and try and get the best out of the players that I have. Play them in slightly better position, maybe get Giggs away from that AMC role, and just try and make the most of it. Palmerthinaikos coming in as well, the new is he Vietnamese, Norwegian, or something like that? I believe. It doesn't say in here what his second nationality is. Obviously born in Norway. Anyway, either way, he's come in. He had an okay debut for them, better than the young Sock and these boys that he had earlier on. Lee Fowler, who we haven't seen since either. But either way, Michael Owen starts alongside Brosek. He's got Robbie Keane behind him as Simon Davies as Giggs, and then it's Kalata Guardiola and then Carr there, and then Rustico Simic Carini at the back, who we are very familiar with. In terms of the opposition, the Swindon Devils. Swindon is sticking with the tactic that they've had for a couple of games now. They've not had the most out of it, but they've had so many issues in terms of injured players, angry players. They had a red card for Chris. It's been uphill for the Devils. It's been uphill for them. The Great Escape is the name of the tactic. I'm not sure what they're escaping from. Maybe it's a Shawshank Redemption thing of wading through shit. Who knows? It's not going particularly well so far, but we'll see if that can turn around tonight. We've got Ashley Cole and we've got Danny Mills on the wings, but Montero and Mendes is back at the back, which has got to be very, very important for him. Liberopoulos can maybe do something. Remains to be seen what kind of impact he'll have for the side. Kluivert and Ronaldo up front. So yeah, it's a strong side. It's a strong squad. There are good players in most of them in their sort of appropriate positions, and it should be possible for Swindon to get a result. But we'll see how it goes against the Dragons. Obviously, results haven't really been going Swindon's way recently, but the Dragons, Still very, very inconsistent, but we'll kick this one off and we'll see how the things unfold this evening in terms of who picks up the 3 points. Can Dragons keep up with the Hooligans, with Chudley, with these guys, or are Swindon going to make the first steps on that great escape that they've been planning for a while now? Obviously, interesting to see Dragons changing those things up front. We'll see if anything comes of that. Few questions around Michael Owen, why he wasn't playing, why Michael Owen's not been given chances. He's always great on the game. He scores 1,000,000 goals in his career for the AI. And there's Robbie Keane, who we haven't seen all season. Such an instrumental player for Dragon Destroyers last year. We have not seen anything from Robbie Keane all season at all. That was Brosic getting a goal disallowed for offside, and here he comes in a very important game, which is going to take them into the last 7. Obviously, hopefully for them in good form, and he's starting to pick up some kind of form. That would be excellent for the Dragons. But back to Michael Owen, yeah, questions were raised why he's not been given chances, but obviously Jamie's decided to go with Owen tonight, and we'll see if he delivers. The answer is no. But anyway, let's have a look at the match stats first. So yeah, really strong first half performance from the Dragons there. 5 shots, 4 of them on target. Nothing really for Swindon, unfortunately. Whether they're running offside or what's happening, it's not really known, to be honest. Good distribution of tackles and completed passes in terms of headers won. Swindon are dominating in the air, but failing to capitalize on it. Really failing to get any kind of anything going down in the bottom third of the pitch in terms of where the Dragons are defending. Let's have a look at the Dragons stats. As mentioned, Michael Owen hasn't failed to impress. I don't know why he's trying to tackle, but it's not going particularly well. He had a shot, a 6 a bit harsh for that. I don't know. Palmerthinaikos, the new guy, also getting a 6. And Carini getting a 6 perhaps for not touching the ball. I don't know how you can really expect much more from him considering the few number of shots on goal from the opposition. Strong performance from the 2 central defenders, Rustico and Simic, obviously keeping out Kluivert and Ronaldo. Guardiola and Kalatze, very strong performance from them, both of them getting 8s. So it's really just a question of getting Owen into the game if there's anything that could really be improved for Dragons. Palmerthinaikos will maybe still just finding his feet here. Simon Davies, it's tricky for him out on the right hand side, but we'll see if he can come up with something for the Dragons in the second half and have a little bit more of an impact. Swindon Devils, Richard Wright doing okay in goal. Danny Mills, who I have previously slated as obviously their best player. If Danny Mills is your best player, then your Leeds going through a certain period. I think you're perhaps not having a great time in the Super League. It's difficult to put a finger on. It's a little bit like BTEC. There's something inherently different, I guess, in terms of how the team's set up, in terms of player instructions, team instructions. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's just a fluke. Maybe it's just morale. You never know. But something is lacking somehow. I mean, obviously player morale is not going to be the best when you're down that end of the table anyway, but we'll see. Maybe a quick sucker punch early on in the second half can bring Swindon back into the game, and then that'll perhaps push them on to bigger and better things. So important for them to have Paulo Monteiro back, obviously. Such a strong presence in defense for them. Surprising that there's no high balls into the area, but I guess with Brosic, with Owen, maybe it's a different style of football that they're actually playing. Brosic got the assist, obviously. He had a goal disallowed. Should mention that, obviously. I believe that BTEC, actually, come to think of it, BTEC neither had a goal disallowed for offside nor had a penalty claim turned down. I think that might be the first time that the BTEC have had their referees on their side. Missed that during the game, but either way. Second half of Dragon Destroyers against Swindon Devils coming right up. We'll see if Swindon can find a way back into this, or if Dragons can hold on for the win. Who knows? Danny Mills, he has scored before, he could score again. There's Ashley Cole, is from the other side. It's the left-hand side of the defense that's delivering the goods for Swindon Devils tonight. As I said, they could sucker punch it and find a way back into this. It is a new formation for Dragons. They might not be entirely familiar with it yet. Couple of good chances for Swindon here towards the end. They could still nick it, but so could Dragons. It finishes 1-1. A little bit too quick there at the end. Neither side really managing to get anything out of it in the dying seconds. It's not a great result, obviously, for either side as well. But Swindon, perhaps, it's difficult to say that Swindon will be the happier. But considering that the distribution of shots on goal and the fact that they were behind, I mean, taking a point away from home is not a bad result against Dragon Destroyers, to be completely honest. In terms of the action, especially when we look at that, lots of the possession for Dragons, they just kind of failed to convert it. Probably the last time we see Michael Owen in a Dragons shirt, we'll see. I mean, everyone else around him is putting in. What's wrong with him? What's wrong with Michael Owen? What is it about Michael Owen that means that he can't perform in the Super League? Is it the jumping? That is kind of his only. I mean, even his strength is pretty good. Bravery is not the highest either. Bravery and jumping, is that really what makes a Super League player? Whether you're brave and you can jump, that would be disappointing, but it does seem to be. There might be something about that. Either way, Brose gets an assist, so that's good news for him and Keane. But we've already seen that at half time. Simon Davies a little bit more involved in the second half. Still just a 7 for him. It's a bit of a shame because he had made he had made a relatively good start to his career here with 6 assists. So yeah, strong performances. It's just lacking a little bit that kind of killer instinct. Final sort of push across the line for Dragons there. They should have perhaps buried this one. Let's have a look at Swindon. Paulo Montero. I mean, how often do you get a defender getting man of the match like that? I mean, he's just an absolute monster. Him and Marc-Vivien Foe. I mean, Marc-Vivien Foe not winning a huge percentage of his tackles, but definitely putting the effort in. Liverpool's finding it a little bit difficult to adjust to life in the Super League. We'll see if he gets many more games. I guess the alternative is Zidane. There's Seedorf is sitting on the bench, but he's not done particularly well when he's been playing. So he does have options. Whether they're better or worse remains to be seen. Danny Mills obviously answering the critics with a strong performance and a 9. Brilliant for him. Ashley Cole getting an 8, and Marc-Vivien Foe even getting an assist. Very, very impressive there. Sebastian Mendes only getting a 6, but he was probably up against Owen and had nothing to do. Or maybe it was the other way around. Either way. Yeah, strong performance all round. A little bit more creativity from the AMC role, and maybe Swindon could have had all 3 points here. But 1-1. Dragons stay in. They get overtaken by Hornets, don't they? Dragons stay near the bottom. They stay on 21 points anyway, so definitely not enough to overtake Hooligans. And Swindon, obviously, on 11, stay where they are in 14th as well. But yeah, a decent enough game that, and a little bit surprising that Dragons, after that first half performance, weren't able to capitalize. But a good comeback from Swindon Devils in the second half, and on balance, probably a deserved point for them given the performance of the individual players. Moving swiftly on, we do have a bit of a clash coming up. We have Midlothian against Bolton Phoenix, a match that I'm sure many of you have been looking forward to. Certainly the guys over in Edinburgh, I'm sure, will be sitting with, what's it called again? Bated breath, something like that anyway. Internet connectivity allowing them, certainly from the manager's perspective, they'll be eagerly anticipating this one. And let's have a look at Bolton Phoenix. It looks okay as well. First up, we've got Midlothian. A Renaissance formation here. I'm not sure what's Renaissance about it. 271, is it? I guess. Roberto Carlos on the left, Dulash on the right. Very, very. I mean, the team sheet looks more and more solid for Midlothian. I guess maybe that's something you can say about some of the teams at the top compared to the teams at the bottom, is that the team sheet looks very solid. Addo and Barmalov are obviously just in there because of injury. Otherwise, Gerard and Gattuso would have played there. Van der Vaart, will he play there? I don't know. You could maybe swap that around a little bit. But the back 4-5, Roberto Carlos, Dulash, Hofland, Klompe, Given will play every time. Back and Vieri will play every time. Normally you have Gerard and Gattuso in there playing every time, so you only really have 2 people that you're kind of swapping around. Maybe Van der Vaart or Taker won't necessarily play every game, but they could might as well. They're good players, so it'll be interesting to see what Midlothian can do at home to Bolton. This is kind of like I think it's a crucial point in Midlothian season here. If they are at the beginning of the season, they were probably fighting a little bit to be taken serious as playoff contenders. Now they're a definite playoff, not even contenders. They are almost like a certainty to be in the playoffs. Now the question is whether they can push on to be considered challengers for the actual title. And in order to do that, I would suggest that a home win against Bolton Phoenix in their 2-7-1 formation is definitely required. In terms of personnel, they've got Olivier Dacour back, Kuhl and Raoul are in the AMC roles, Torres is on the bench, Dede and Sambrota, who aren't as good as they were last season. They're up against Dulac and Roberto Carlos, so it'll be a tough match for them. But yeah, it could be a battle of the wingbacks tonight. Bolton Phoenix, obviously, in a good run of form. They haven't beaten BTEC 3-0 at home last time out. Midlothian only got that 2-2 draw with Somerset Sloth. So in terms of form, you would probably say that on balance, Bolton are looking slightly stronger going into this. But they are away from home. The Iron Brew Fortress, although it hasn't been the Iron Brew Fortress of last season, is still a difficult place to pick up 3 points. So perhaps a draw is on the cards here. Perhaps one of the sides will sneak the win. I mean, I think the important part is that Midlothian are looking to be taken seriously, and in order for them to be taken seriously as contenders, as mentioned, I believe they do need to win this one. But let's have a look and see if Back and Vieri can do it, or if Montella will continue his goal scoring run. There's obviously spaces on top of the top scorer chart up for grabs, with Van Nistelrooy being out of action. First 10 minutes gives a yellow card from Midlothian to Hofland, and that was pretty much it. The next 10 doesn't do much more. I won't say the teams are sort of equaling each other out, because there are chances, but we're half an hour in and it's not exactly been riveting stuff so far. Of course, identical formations. Yeah, great. Okay. Yes. I have nothing to say to that. Second half, early strike for Montella. He puts Bolton in front. Let's hope that can kickstart the second half, and something might happen to alleviate the absolute fucking horror show that this match has been. There's Dede with the goal right before the end. A strong performance by Bolton in the second half. Well done to Ryan for setting the team up. I'm not sure what happened to Midlothian in that first half, or in that game, to be honest. In total, always fear it a little bit when two teams set up in exactly the same formation. I mean, we can talk about narrow against narrow, and super narrow against super narrow, wide against wide, and 2-7-1 against 2-7-1. As long as there's slightly different interpretations of them, you always feel as if one side can have the upper hand. Two identical formations, perhaps with identical instructions, who knows? Yeah, I mean, Bolton obviously got the long straw in this one, and it's got to be down to I think the superior performance of the players and those two injuries that Midlothian had. But let's have a look at the player stats. I mean, there's not a single key pass in there, not a single key pass made by anyone in that side in the entire game. I appreciate that Gattuso and Gerrard are out, but that could have gone better, to be honest. Klompe and Hofland obviously very doing a brilliant job there in terms of their defensive performances. Christian Vieri not doing anything, but yeah, I mean they're cancelled out by the superior DMCs for Bolton Phoenix. That's probably the long and short of it. And if we look at them here, Oliver Dacour not doing too much. Sinoni, yeah, doing a good job. Verong, I guess there's just that tiny bit more quality in that Bolton side that just edged them the kind of game in their favor. I don't want to sound too depressed, because in the end it was a decent performance by Bolton in the second half. They did what they had to do. Obviously Montella came came up with the goal early on. Again, Veron with an assist, Harry Kewell with an assist as well, and they did what they had to do in order to secure the win. I guess I was just incredibly disappointed by that first half performance by both sides. Hence my lack of of enthusiasm. Either way, they can't all be super exciting, cracking, fantastic end-to-end stuff games, and I'm sure that Bolton will more than happy with the 3 points they picked up tonight. Midlothian, it's a shame because they were really on a great run, and now they've been overtaken by Bolton. They're back down to third. They could go fourth if Valen win later tonight as well. This was really make or break, but I appreciate that with those two injuries, it's difficult. It's a difficult proposition to up against Akura, Sinoni, and these kind of guys, especially with two teams playing the exact same formation. So it's a case of who blinks first. No one blinked, and in the end, the slightly stronger lineup for Bolton Phoenix probably won out on the night. Just to make sure we've gone through the screen so that the guys can see exactly what has happened. There we go. And Montella, obviously, the guy who's closing in on Van Nistelrooy, now on 13 goals perhaps for the season. So a good night for Bolton, and they are looking on course for a second grand final performance, maybe. Either way, next up we have. Should we take? Yes, we have Valen United against Somerset Sloths, because the last one is the battle for the last playoff spot with Palmerthinaikos and Aster, obviously. So we have Valen United and we have Somerset Sloths. Valen United, only change for them, they are in their Valen narrow formation, as we know from nearly 2 seasons now, and it's been serving them well so far, and obviously Andreas is sticking with it. Last time out, good performance from Andre probably prevented them picking up all 3 points away to Chudley, but they could pick up 3 points. If they pick up 3 points here at home, then they're on 36, only 2 points behind Churchtown. 3 points, because they're on 39 now, aren't they? But they're definitely closing in on a top 2 place again. Totti, Saviola, Shevchenko, Fiore, Nakata, great song prayers all across the board. We know who they are. Stephen Reed is the new name on the bench. Jeremy's obviously coming in for Keane, who's suspended again, I think. In terms of Somerset Sloths, there's not a huge amount of changes here. We had Kaka on the right-hand side last time out. He's dropped. Solari comes in, Duff comes in for him, and Solari, the either-footed Solari, moves over to the right-hand side, and Duff's comes in on the left. Interesting. It's a wide formation. They can create chances with this one. They obviously showed that against Midlothian last time out, and Matthias Kessman with 2 goals. He's 7 in 13, although his average is a little bit low. It's not been a bad season for him. Let's kick this one off and see how the Sloths fare on their trip to Sweden. Initially not too bad. They have had a couple of chances. I've seen Kessman's name popping up a couple of times there, but and there he is. Kessman's name does pop up, and Sloths do take the lead at Valen United. Surprise, surprise. What? Why is Crespo on the bench? Right, let's see. Silakovic can probably go up front. We'll do that. I think he headbutted Jens Jeremies. That's not gone well, has it? That was the curse of Sloths last season, is that they picked up a ton of red cards, and obviously the curtain's gone down for Kessman here, and I believe we'll check at halftime. I believe I do believe he headbutted Jens Jeremies, which is just a little bit. It's not a nice thing to do. Not a nice thing to do. A bit of violence there, but they're defending well. They're holding firm so far, but they did that against Midlothian as well for a while, and then eventually it didn't turn out to go that well for them. But let's have a look. It was Patsa Soklu with the cross to Kessman in the area, and a goal for Kessman. In a moment of madness, Kessman headbutted Jeremies. Yeah, that was exactly what happened. So that'll be a game out for Kessman. We'll have a look. Valen United, disappointing first half performance from them. They're obviously the slightly better side in terms of what they've done. More passes completed, relatively same amount of tackles, and then a bit of a a better situation in terms of the headers, just failing to convert. So up and down for Shevchenko and Totti. I guess that being chased by some of the bigger clubs in Europe all the time, having transfer rumours and speculations. I think a 54 million pound move for Shevchenko was turned down recently from Europe. So I believe that could play part in the performance that those guys put in. Shevchenko with a 6 here. Saviola, another poor night for him, unfortunately. I mean, good average, but it's just doesn't always fire the full game for them. But they could obviously turn things around in the second half. No fitness issues though for Sloth, so we'll see. In terms of their performance, this has not been a great night for Duff. He came in for Kaka, who's on the bench now, so maybe they'll swap back next week. Who knows? Solari doing a decent job. He's probably has probably been one of their best players, to be completely honest, this season, with his 4 assists. Assist tonight obviously was for Patasoglu so far. Let's kick off the second half and see if Valen can find a way back into this. If there's anything, maybe it'll come from Yeramis, maybe Fiora. They've been good in the first half. Lisa Rasu as well has had an impact earlier this season in crucial games. So let's see what Valen can come up with in the second half. I mean, Sloths are still creating chances. I'm a little bit surprised at that actually, but it does seem as if that width is working for them. Although Duff and Solari aren't getting the best in terms of the average rating, it looks as if it's given Valen a lot to think about, and it's kind of preventing them from piling on that pressure that they've been so known for throughout their sort of tenure in the Super League, or the tenure of Andreas in the Super League. But it finishes with a surprising away win. Valen United again. The thing that perhaps cost them the title, well, I say perhaps, the thing that cost them the the title last season, the inability to score for some unknown reason in certain matches, has come back to haunt them. That's a couple of games without goals in a row now, and yeah, Sloss pick up 3 points away from home and move up to 22 above Dragon Destroyers, and I think equal with Hornets. Let's have a look at the individual performances. CC only getting a 6. Jeremy's getting man of the match. Saviola and Shevchenko just not at the races in terms of converting chances. They didn't even have that many, to be honest, and Totti just didn't put them away for them at all. So yeah, it's an unusual one. It's difficult to predict. It's a little bit like they're like a much better B-Tech, if you want to call it that, Valen United. They very, very rarely have poor games, almost never, but there's something either in their instructions or their lineup or something like that does that sometimes it just becomes impossible for them to convert chances, to score goals against specific formations or in certain conditions. I don't know, but that's, I mean, a 6 for both Saviola and Shevchenko. That's a very unfortunate return for them in terms of performance, and it obviously cost them the victory. So good news for Midlothian as they failed to pick up points. Valen do the same. Ardsley also failed to pick up points. It's really only Bolton who got the 3 points, and then Churchtown with the 1. So there's not been a lot of points for the top 6 this week. So that'll be interesting to see how that affects the table at the end of the night. Down at Sloss in Somerset, it's a poor performance if we're being 100% honest. Taibi and Solari really bringing home the bacon for the Sloss here. Kessman obviously being the kind of man of the match. He's the one who got the goal, but he's also the one who could have cost them the 3 points by getting sent off there. Moment of madness for him. The big question remains to be seen now. Will we see Hern and Jorge Crespo back for Sloss before the end of the season, now that they're without their main goal scoring threat? They have, I think, home game coming up against Ardsley Celtic, who've proven themselves to be vulnerable against 3 strikers. I'm not sure if Sloss have 3 strikers, but they could potentially bring in Donovan, Crespo, maybe maybe some other Super League legends are hanging around on the bench somewhere. I don't know. Remains to be seen. Remains to be seen what Rob does with his team for that match. But a great result for them. A great result for Sloss, picking up 3 points away from home. Yeah, which brings us to the final game of the evening, which is Palmerthinaikos against Aster Athletic. Let's bring this one up. So Palmerthinaikos unchanged from last time out. They were a little bit unlucky perhaps with that 0-0 against Hoddesdon Hornets. they're creating chances again. It's a team who are sometimes struggling, who are sometimes doing really really well. They had such a good start to the season. Since then, it's been a little bit hit and miss. They've just it's just a question of finding that consistency, finding a consistent goal scorer, finding a consistent, I don't know, supply man. Nedved has obviously done a fairly decent job with 7 assists in 18. Great stats he's got as well. A great player he is, Pavel Nedved, but just a little bit of that kind of killer instinct, a little bit of that kind of like dagger to the heart of the opposition is kind of missing there. Salihamidzic, I mean, Jogatas, there's players here who worked really, really well for Palmerthinaikos last season, and they are to some extent working well for Palmerthinaikos this season. They're just not taking them to the next level, and it'll be interesting how they go against Aster Athletic tonight. Obviously, you couldn't get narrower than Alf's narrow formation. It's unchanged in terms of the starting lineup. Marcus Babla and Juninho Paulista are rewarded for good morale and training with places on the bench. I'm not sure if that's much of a reward. Here, you've done really well. You can go on the bench. I suppose it's better than being completely left out of the squad. We'll see if he'll need any of them. He has obviously had a couple of injuries earlier on in the season, Alf. Apart from that, not much to say about his formation. It's Alf B, and I'll leave it up to the audience to guess what that might be. We'll kick off the first half, and we'll see if Palmerthinaikos can find some goals. Or it has been difficult for Aster's opponents to find goals in general. But let's see if it works out for Palmerthinaikos tonight, or if a plan B will do for Aster Athletic as they continue their push. And it's Sonny Anderson who opens the scoring, and that means that as it stands, Aster Athletic are in the playoffs at the expense of Palmerthinaikos, who are just struggling. They are just struggling, unfortunately. I think that's the only word for it. I mean, as I always with Aster, I don't want to be harsh, but it's a little bit boring, this formation. But I guess if you get 3 points, you're not going to complain too much about it. Salihamidzic and Nedved surprisingly being the poor. Oh, let's have a look at the stats actually. Yeah, as mentioned, kind of boring-ish. Pretty much everything happening in the center of the park, but not a lot of interesting things happening. Salihamidzic and Nedved perhaps surprisingly being the two worst players in the first half of Palmerthinaikos. Decent enough performance at the back, but just getting that coherence further up the pitch is not really doesn't really look as if it's happening for them. Still surprised at the inclusion of Romedal in general, but I guess each to his own. In terms of Aster Athletic, again, a solid performance from the players at the back. It's not quite as desperate as the first half of Bolton and Midlothian, but it's not been hugely far off. Great to see Sonny Anderson coming in. He was brought in. He was brought in ages ago. Never really featured. He had a couple of starts. Never really did anything. But he's gotten as he's getting he's maturing like fine wine, and obviously doing a job for Aster Athletic now. That having been said, though, it is only 1-0, and there is a full 45 minutes to go. Let's see if Palmerthinaikos can find a way back into this. They only need to draw to hold on to the playoff spot, but obviously, as it stands, Aster are in 6th place. Fairly even start to the second half. Palmerthinaikos creating a couple of chances. We see Romedal again coming forward, but Håkan Mild is making light work of the Dane. It's definitely Palmerthinaikos creating the better chances early on in the second half, but they are failing to get past the strong defense of Aster Athletic there. They are maybe tripping up a few players, committing a few free kicks, but old and wise is definitely the case for the Aster defense and defensive midfielders so far. Let's see if some of the Palmerthinaikos, more youthful Palmerthinaikos players can perhaps overwhelm them on fitness in the last 10 minutes. Aster have been the masters of fitness management so far this season, so it doesn't look like it on the surface. Oof, but there he is, Pavel Nedved, right at the death. It was always going to be tricky for Aster Athletic to get over that final hurdle to get into the top 6, and Palmerthinaikos are hanging on by the skin of their teeth. Romedal knocked the ball for Nedved, and eventually he had a fine strike and an equalizer for Palmerthinaikos in overtime as well. Whether fitness played a part, there's a bunch. 70, 70, 70, 70, 70, 70, 70, and let's have a look here. I guess some of the old boys. Håkan is struggling. Johan Vogel struggle is not old, but he's struggling anyway. Rui Costa, I don't know if it's age playing a part, but definitely fitness did seem to be a bit of an issue towards the end of that the second half. A bunch of yellow cards for the defenders as well. Obviously, they were getting kind of desperate. Salihamidzic, the only player kind of. Oh, let's have a quick look. We missed that, didn't we? A bunch of offsides as well. Tons of free kicks. Action zones fairly evenly matched, which again reflects in the result. Cannavaro, of course, probably best defender in the league, or one of them anyway. Top one, maybe, in my opinion. He gets man of the match awards, same as Montero did for Swindon. So very, very strong performance from him. Overall, an exceptionally strong performance from Palmerthinaikos at the back. Sadly for them, Salihamidzic didn't really find anything out on that right hand side. Jorgatas neither. It's tricky against Aster when they put the when they have that kind of super narrow formation. Difficult to create anything, even if you do get the ball in there. Is there anyone to receive it? Let's look at the headers one. I mean, Trezeguet wins one header. If you're trying to get people to cross, and you've got Nedved not winning any headers, Romedal not winning any headers, and Trezeguet winning one, then your wide men are also going to suffer a little bit because their passes are going to look unsuccessful. But that's a credit to that big, enormous block of very, very strong and experienced players that Aster have at the back. Unfortunately for them, though, Brooking and Costa were up against superior opposition tonight, and that has ultimately cost them in terms of getting more chances. Yeah, Sonny Anderson, obviously, good match for him. 4 shots, 2 of them on target, and he actually does get a goal. Arnold Brooking, not as good as we sometimes see him. Rui Costa, he was a disappointment for me at Valen, and he continues to be a disappointment for me at Aster Athletic. I'm not sure what he's. I mean, if that's the formation that Alf is going with, and he believes in Rui Costa, then that's obviously fine. I don't know. For me, he's not getting anything out of playing Rui Costa. 4 goals in 15, 16 now, maybe it's. But either way, it's still a solid point for Aster. It's just unfortunate for them that it was against Palmerthinaikos, who they were hoping to overtake. And that concludes this evening's matches. We had Ardsley, who ran into a bit of a hammering against Gabriel Batistuta, and a new surprise lineup from Hoddesdon Hornets. So, taking people by surprise is always an option. Sometimes it works out, as it did tonight. Sometimes it's a disaster, as it was for BTEC against Bolton last week. But yeah, this is an argument for the for the case, definitely. BTEC themselves. Good performance. Agahawa getting an assist, getting in there. As a draw against the league leaders. Again, it's a step in the right direction. It should give confidence. They just need more goals. In general, everyone needs more goals apart from Batistuta. Yeah, it's a 2-0, good, solid win for Chudley Cannons against Hooligans, who didn't offer much in terms of resistance. The Mark and Mark duo there, doing very well for the Cannons. Then we had Dragons against Swindon. Dragons were looking on course for a victory here after that early Robbie Keane goal, but super solid performance from Pablo Montero and a goal from Ashley Cole rescued a point for Swindon, who, in fairness, probably could have won it in terms of their performance in the second half, but it wasn't to be. Yeah, I had a bit of a heart attack at this one because the first half was so pathetic. The second half, it didn't look like 9-5. I mean, I think it would have been 6-5 in terms of shots. 6 in terms of shots and 5 on target in the second half. I think they were 3-0 at halftime. It didn't look like that to me, but obviously well deserved. I don't want to take anything away from Bolton Phoenix. A well deserved win there, and back to the drawing board for Midlothian in case of what they do with their 2 missing defensive midfielders, Gerard and Gattuso, because 0 shots on target ain't gonna win you any grand finals, unfortunately. Bolton are a very difficult side to beat, as we saw in last year's semi-final and final, when they eventually beat Valen United, obviously. So yeah, there are lessons to be learned from teams who want to win the Super League, who haven't done so already. Definitely, Bolton proven that they know how to win when they have to, and both Valen and Midlothian tonight showing that perhaps they still need to find that killer instinct, that little change when key players are missing, especially in that DMC role. Maybe you do a tweak or two. I mean, Jeremis obviously got a man of the match performance for Valen, so that's perhaps a tiny bit harsh on them, but just getting that little bit extra out of it when it really matters. Then we had Valen United, as we just spoke about. Jens Jeremy's getting the man of the match, but it was at the top of the pitch that they didn't really have that killer instinct. And Palmerthinaikos Aster battles out a 1-1 draw. Palmerthinaikos stay in the playoff spots. Aster, the gap to them remains at 1 point. And let's have a look at the league table as it stands after all these games. We have Churchtown out in front on 39 points. They've They've not extended their league, have they? No, they haven't. They've still got a 3-point lead over second place. It's just that second place has changed from Midlothian to Bolton with that win. Only 15 goals conceded Bolton Phoenix this season. Jaap Stam and Gary Neville obviously doing a sterling job for them. Rap Douglas as well. Although he had absolutely nothing to do today apart from sort of roll the ball about and look at things. Valen United. They would have been hoping for more at home to Sloths, having only conceded 16 prior to tonight this season. To concede and not score is a disappointment for them. RC Celtic, I mean, they're so unpredictable. Hodgie and the boys, so unpredictable. I mean, it's unfortunately for them, it's predictable that they're not going to win at the moment. They do play Sloths next. They've got Hooligans. They've got Swindon. No disrespect to Sloths, Hooligans, or Swindon, but Hodgie's not going to get better chances of picking up points than he will get in the next 3 games, because then it's Bolton, it's Aster, it's Palmerthinaikos and Midlothian for the last 4. So points needs to be collected, and they need to be collected fast. Next 3 games crucial. Yeah, not sure what he needs to do in order to start finding goals. It obviously wasn't a problem for a short period early on the season, but somehow it's just dropped off, and a 4-0 defeat, that's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. Anyway, they're still 4 points ahead of Aster, so nothing to worry about as of yet, but that could obviously all change if things don't start going a little bit more in their favor. Palmerthinaikos Aster continue the battle for 6th place. They now have a little bit of a gap to Chudley, who had a good performance tonight. Chudley do something interesting. They go to Churchtown next week. Palmerthinaikos go to they go to Bolton. Oh yeah, it's the Bolton derby next week, isn't it? So a difficult one for Palmerthinaikos. Aster have BTEC at home. That could obviously, if they win there and Palmerthinaikos don't win the Bolton derby, then Aster are into the top 6. It could happen. Chudley, they need to be on top form to get a point against Churchtown, obviously, perhaps even 3 to keep up with them. Hooligans, they're at home to Valen, so that'll be possibly 2 narrow tactics against each other. We'll see how that pans out. Hoddesdon Hornets, I mean, big game for Craig. He's coming up against Dragons next week. Will he stick with this incredibly successful formation? remains to be seen. Sloths, as we spoke about, they take on Ardsley. Dragons are the ones who travel to Hoddesdon. BTEC, we spoke about, they face Aster and Swindon. Last but not least,